Get in the flying car, everyone. It's time to go to London. So how are we going from small-time crooks to fighting with music to a statue story like never before to... Is that the Grim Reaper? Well, that's what we're here to explain. The world of Zenless Zone Zero is surprisingly vast, and the stakes are only getting higher. In 2.8, the world almost ended. So why is that, and how does this set up for Season 3? Is this a cryptid? Are we actually going to London? The answer is here. Thank you to Zenless Zone Zero for sponsoring this video. If you play during this patch, you'll have a chance at getting Pyrois and the new S-Rank Starlight Billy. So to help with that, you can use my code ZZZ28 Comfy Blue to get 60 polychrome and some Denny. And remember, the answers are here. Maybe. So we're going to recap what happened in 2.8 and then go into the deep lore and how everything ties together to take some guesses at what's coming in Season 3. So jumping straight into the patch, we know that we kinda lost? The Hollow Championship went sideways and we lost the super painkiller for our evil headache. Our pink-haired friend disappeared without a trace. Fairy's on the job though and is able to track down the
pink hair, kind of a baddie. Actually, definitely a baddie.
Bro, I knew I liked you, dude. Come here.
Pretty quickly. Sissia's got work approval to help us, and Billy's also got
the surprise tool that can help us later.
So we get some real exposition and catch Ramiel's trail. This leads us all the way to Blazewood, where she decided to enter a hollow for something. Once we tail her in there, we get jumped by a bunch of murder dog bots. But it's time for Billy's surprise tool that'll help us now. Things were going all right with one, but now there are like 50, and it's almost curtains, but we're saved by... We meet Pyrois, the total pacifist, and catch her up to speed over there. Turns out Krampus and Rustycliff are both on the hunt for a baddie. Aren't we all? There's already a lot of tops movement inside the hollow though, so time to regroup and check in the morning. We barely get that far though. The proxy's got a bad case of the sleepwalkies and ghosties? Who else helps us but Ramiel? Sorry, Ramiel Dan, the first generation Void Hunter. You know, one of the 3 legendary heroes that pushed back the big scary Dark Wall? The one that could level a city? Remy Memimem Pinky promises us that she'll give us the engine back when she's done with it, and pieces out when our friends get back. This is when Pyrois decides to finally let us in on the secret that there is an anti-Void Hunter suppression mech in the hollow. As in, there is a mech in there that is supposedly built to stop Void Hunters. Ice Baddie is a first generation, so Tops is either dumb or dumb. Remiel has a quick and ominous chat with what we'll call the Carol Cube, and now we've got to go find her. But how can we suddenly trace the untraceable, is what you might be asking. Fear not, we also have a Void Hunter level character here. It's not Sissia, it's Chalky. Huh? Chalky stuck a tracker onto Remiel, so we tail it to her general area, only to find the tracker on a very urban statue she got earlier from Sanzi. Even though she's not there, we figure that we can use the scary headache ghost to track where she might have gone. This works until the proxy gets popped into the Benadryl dimension. After a chill little jaunt through the nightmare maze, we tap the glass and break through the wall. There's a treasure chest hidden in there, just like one of the newfangled video games, and who doesn't want to immediately touch the glowing treasure? Before we can do that though, the anti-Void Hunter mech drops in to stop us. Pyrois tries pulling rank to get the guy to back off, but he doesn't give a darn. Hearing that, she decides to drop one of the coldest lines we've gotten yet.
Anti-Void Hunter mech. In name only.
Thankfully, looks like someone ripped off Tops. It totally was in name only. It's not too much of an issue for our squad to scrap the bot, but the proxy's got a different priority. The loot box is way too shiny and tempting, but it's evil. Once the box is tapped, the proxy goes full construction complex and absorbs the mech that we just took out. Now they're a crazy sacrifice type beast that we've got to subdue. But even when we thought it was over, this was only phase 1. A brand new entity emerges from the shell, only to scorch the horizon. We've fought some crazy stuff, but there's absolutely no way our crew can manage this. Who else but Miss Dan to the rescue, knowing exactly what she needs loads to do here. Makes you think, huh? Fast forward a bit and the proxy wakes up unscathed in their room, with your sibling especially worried. When all's said and done, the promise was kept. Remiel left the W engine with you and it's on display here. As we're up and about, Valina and Norma make their way inside. Through totally legal means, they've been monitoring our biometrics and decide that we need treatment. The only place we can get it? Rose Califer, the city in the sky. As members of the external department, they let us know that we've got a pass to go with them, and we don't really have a choice in the matter. They also let us know the pink-haired baddie is actually a baddie, in the sense that she tried to wax Sunbringer. So tons of stuff is not making sense. People are probably lying, and we've got to be on our toes. Even Primea leaves a note saying, don't trust tops, including Krampus and me. Thankfully, Billy and Sissia are gonna be our buddy system up there. So with that, it's time for our field trip. So now everyone's up to speed? Great! There's too much. What do you mean we became the boss? How? We're just gonna glaze past that? Not to mention, the first generation Void Hunter? Over 100 years old? And there's more than one? You'd be surprised at how much this makes sense? We've got to make some assumptions, sure, but there are a lot of hints to clue us into how things like Remiel, Sunbringer, and Scorched Horizons work. So the pink-haired baddie, Remiel Dan, Lieutenant Colonel of the Guard of Staves and Generation Uno Void Hunter. One of the 3 juggernauts that pushed back the Dark Wall. How the hell is she still around, and what's her problem? Well, we know now what was rightfully hers from 2.7. The super evil turns us into a monster loot box was her Void Hunter weapon, Thawmiel. From the looks of it, she needed the Porceloid as a key, but we were able to find it just fine with our special eyes. That and, you know, almost made a world-endangering calamity. She knew what to do, though? That's the weird part. There was not the slightest bit of concern when she slurped Thawmiel out from the proxy. So she absolutely knows more about the bigger issue than she ever tells us. But how can she still be around? She's over 100, right? Now, let me be clear for a second. Okay, for real, I still maintain the no time travel mentality. There's weird stuff that can go down in the hollows, but there are a lot of solutions that can explain things like Sunbringer and Remiel still being around. In Pinky's case, she probably went into stasis. There are a lot of hints that this is the case, but let's take a look at what her power was doing before, shall we? From jump, we saw that she was using her feathers to stop the flow of ether in things, mainly ethereals. When the time was right, she jumped in and time stopped us to get the W engine. So imagine this, but using the Dr. Stone special on yourself for whatever reason. Something that's mentioned a few times is how the Dark Wall trio has brushed against the truth. This is also what the Krampus leader asked Primea about the proxies, to which she denies. If the truth was really scary, or she was in a dire situation, I can see her hitting the pause button. It might even be why the weapon was put in safekeeping, but I doubt that. Another option, she might have gotten the okay to retire. When we see the vision of Remiel in the hollow, she's right where Thawmiel is locked up and says,
This is where we say goodbye, my old friend. And I truly hope that we never see each other again.
If she's out there peacefully burying the super weapon she used to fight in the Dark Wall, it's not a stretch to think that she thought the issue was resolved, war over. But of course, she's back and mad. So Remiel was probably a statue for a cool 100 years. It's great. What's that got to do with Sunbringer and Scorched Horizons Faithen? Well, I've spoken about Sunbringer quite a bit already. You can find that here. And you know, hit the button and the bell. I know we all want to talk about this thing, and also this guy, but we'll get there. The proxy becoming Scorched Horizons Faithen, both the mech and the entity, is a lot like stuff we've seen before in the story. They're absolutely not as cool, but they're still pretty similar. Back in Season 1, we see the unknown corruption complex happen because a sacrifice went nuclear. It corrupted and absorbed all the nearby robots. Of course, we dealt with it, but it was still the first sacrifice we saw, and it was very scary. Once we know about sacrifices, the end of Season 1 has us fight Bringer, who got hit with the experimental sacrifice goop. This dude looks all kinds of messed up, but there's the semblance of a human figure there, under all the hand. There's also the Primordial Nightmare, but we'll make that comparison later. Point being, the proxy pretty much got turned into a sacrifice. More still, they hit level 36 and evolved again. We've only known sacrifices are made by the Exaltus because they've got some kinda experimental goop. So how did it happen to us? From everything we can gather, it seems like the proxy's eyes work too well. Once they tapped the surprise box, they went nuclear. We know the box had Remiel's Void Hunter weapon, Thaumiel, in there. We also know that Remiel was the one who fixed us. From what we know about Void Hunter weapons, they've all got some kinda entity in there. Miyabi's got Tailless, and Shungus has the Qingming being. And from what we know about how they keep the entities in there is a simulated mini hollow that allows the ether beast to stick around. The same kind the proxy has in their eyes. So when in contact with Thaumiel, it seems like it immediately hopped into that mini hollow and completely overwhelmed the proxy. With their ether aptitude and implants, the proxy was essentially a perfect host, resulting in Scorched Horizon's Phaethon. This would also explain why Miss Pink was able to deal with it like she did. Once the Void Hunters master their weapons, there's a sort of agreement/bond with the entity inside. Of any Void Hunters that we know of, the one to have great weapon synergy would be, the legendary 100-year-old hero. She vacuums it back up and gets her weapon back, if more wings and a wardrobe change count as a weapon. But with all of this context, the flashbacks and the upcoming Pyrois, the picture is becoming even clearer. The proxies with their implants are probably something like a perfected sacrifice. Creator refine me this and refinement that. This is what the other sacrifices are looking to be, and we mogged them all, except for maybe one of them. The Primordial Nightmare is a weird case because it's not even classified as a sacrifice. It is one of only 3.5 enemies without a classification. The other two, Nineveh and Geppetto, are called symbiotic ethereal swarms. The Primordial Nightmare is what happened when Sarah got gobbled up by the Creator and shoved into the ominous orb/forge. Now this thing is a lot closer to what we saw, distinctly humanoid and very strong. Once we beat it, it seems like it exploded into flint porcelain, and this is what Valina and Norma were checking out over there. With how events turned out, the Creator we spooked off with Shungus looks like it opened the oven early, and that's the Primordial Nightmare. It's plenty scary already, but if we think about how it could have been more refined with the Creator's power, we are lucky we caught it when we did. Now back to the agreement. We saw Miyabi talk with Tailless and Shungus experience the Qingming realm, but the proxy never spoke with Thaumiel. Moreover, we know that the forced overlay is a bad sign. Enter Pyrois, what is supposed to be the playable proxy. This guy looks like he's got it together. Even if we're just going by colors, of both the proxy's eyes and Pyrois, this is the inversion of the sacrifices we've seen so far. Given that Phaethon doesn't really use a weapon, Pyrois already pulling up straps says a lot. If we're not the one transforming, this is the symbiotic relationship with our entity. Pyrois, being a projection of power and able to act on its own, allow it to defend its host, being Phaethon. So we resolved the temper tantrum and got Remiel her weapon back, and maybe even explained Pyrois. How does this all work back to Sunbringer? Well, let's review some info real quick. Remiel is Remiel Dan, the first generation Void Hunter and legendary hero of the Dark Wall. The proxy went nuclear and became a sacrifice, kinda? Remiel yoinked her weapon out of them. Also, head still hurty, needs special Rose Kayla for doctor. No buts. Top's activity in the Outer Ring was because they knew about Remiel and were trying to pin her down. Remiel has a bone to pick with Sunbringer and had already tried to assassinate her. So Rose Kalifer and Sunbringer are the two big unknowns, and we know precious little about both. Sunbringer is said to be a first-generation Void Hunter and the one that
eradicated the Hive Lord Hollow in the sky.
Now that statement right there should give you some pause, because how the hell is a hollow up there? I've already talked and theorized a lot about Sunbringer elsewhere, so I will give you the quick notes. I do not think Rose Kalifer as we know it is the first one. The Hive Lord Hollow was likely an incident on the original Rose Kalifer, causing Sunbringer to go scorched earth and remake it again. Was the Hollow disaster itself an attack with malicious intent? Maybe? So the Rose Kalifer 2 Electric Boogaloo we'd be visiting is just smack on top of the old one. How is she alive? My best guess is that she's an intelligent construct in the way that Xingyi is. Likely a lot more advanced, absolutely a lot older. She was around to help make Eridu, and teach people about anti-corruption. Why does she go out of her way and know so much? Solid shot she's someone who is involved with the original disaster that made the Hollows. She knows way too much and is doing her best to fix the mess that is left over. If we think of sun and seizing the sun in a less literal way and more like ultimate power or energy, the name Sunbringer might be a not so great thing. Seeing the explosions that caused the Hollows and the apocalypse be born from her research, the name Sunbringer could refer to how she brought about the initial disaster. Sunbringer and her unending love for humanity could be exactly what got everyone into trouble in the first place, and now she still hasn't changed much, doing her best to keep humanity as safe and advanced as possible. So why is Remiel so mad at her? Someone's gotta be in the wrong here, and by all accounts, Sunbringer sounds like an amazing person. Well, the ends might justify the means. While she loves humans and goes out of her way for them, there's one distinction that's made pretty clear. She is absolutely not human.
She's a goddess. Worship her. If she's a demon, worship her with fear.
What might be a drop in the bucket for Sunbringer could be 100 years for other people. Hint, hint. As one of the first generation Void Hunters and likely one of the strongest, Sunbringer very well could have orchestrated what forced Remiel into stasis. If she did go into stasis. Of course, who wouldn't be pissed if they felt betrayed and also woke up 100 years later in a completely changed world with no answers? That's one of many possibilities, and we don't know if it's for a good reason yet. There was a question of morality in 2.8. When Remiel spoke to the proxies, as part of her game, she asked them,
In your eyes, what kind of person is your teacher? In a game like this, the one answering can't lie, but they don't necessarily have to tell the whole truth either. So, let's get back to the question. What kind of person do you think your teacher is? A good person? A bad one? Or perhaps...
In response, the proxy only says,
She's my guide. I trust her.
This is a pretty massive difference in perspective from what the proxies usually have to say about Carol, and this could be a pretty huge hint about Sunbringer too. If the ends justify the means and the whole world is at stake, Sunbringer might not be as benevolent as we are made to believe. That, and if we look at the documents from the Lemnian Hollow, her group is likely the one that made the AIs. If the 4 that we know of now are the 4 Knight variants or are derivative of them, it would make sense that Fairy is Knight 4 and knows way more than we think. If they're all like Sunbringer's smartest children, then yokai going rampant might also make sense. Sunbringer's doing everything she can to protect humanity, potentially at cost to her health or life. The proxies are being shipped up to Rose Califer to fix their implants, but apparently the great lady Sunbringer is only mostly well. With how her eyes look, the only conceivable parallel would be the proxy's implants. If we're up there and the owners of the only other similar eyes, they could use our case and reverse engineer a fix for Sunbringer too. We would be the only source. If Sunbringer being mostly well is due to her incident with Remiel, then we still need to be careful with her intentions. If it's because she's using energy constantly to help people, then humanity is a drain on her existence. When we then look at yokai working with high ambitions to rig the election and go to Rose Califer, it could be to make a statement to Sunbringer and the residents up there. In a roundabout, rebellious teenager way, yokai could be mad about the humans killing my mom. This explains stoking the fire in Lockspring specifically, and also how it attempted to promote conflict between intelligent constructs and humans in New Eridu. This is a long shot though. Far too many assumptions about character and situation made to really say there's a solid chance. With all these moving parts and many more still unmentioned, Season 3 is going to be a huge step forward for the plot. What are you most excited for? Pretty please remember, engagement, hype, metrics, and have a great day.